All great stories have a witch in them. Ask Whispa. She'll tell you. Welcome to Up All Night DIY. I'm Monica. Thanks for joining me. I'm co-hosting the Tricksters with Treats collaboration with my buddies Dawn of Shabby Meets Bling, Martina of The Secret Craft Room, and Morena of Morena's Corner. We're joined by some of our favorite creators for more Halloween fun. You'll find links to their channels as well as the playlist in the description box. Whispa waits. Let's get into it. We're starting out with the usual supplies, a 2.8 and a 2.4 foam ball, model magic, and some toothpicks. Now I'll create flat spots on the top and bottom of each of the ball by tapping them on the table, and that's so that we can stack them, like this. As always, I grab a handful of clay and knead it to condition it, and then I'm going to roll it flat. I want enough so that it's going to cover the larger ball. I always start with the bottom. I'm going to trim away some of this excess clay before I wrap the ball with it. And I'm going to make sure to press to make sure that that clay is on there as I wrap it around. You know what I'm saying? Now I keep that excess clay handy to fill in any gaps. Just going to add some clay to this spot here and anywhere else that it's needed. And I always roll the ball around on the table to smooth it out as I go. Once this is done, I'll repeat the process on the small ball. To stack these, I push 2 toothpicks into the larger ball, and then I'm going to push the small ball on top, centering it. There we go. That'll work. I roll a snake of clay to fill the gap between Whispa's head and body. This is going to help to secure both pieces together. I'm going to wrap it right around the space here, and then I'm going to use my fingers and a clay tool to push it in there. I'm going to use my ball tool to roll over the seam of the clay so that it incorporates with the clay on the balls. Yeah, that looks good. Of course, the neck's going to get covered, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Whispa is going to be taking a bubble bath in her cauldron, so I'm going to roll another snake nice and thin, and this will serve as the rim of the cauldron. So I'm going to go right around the middle of the bottom ball here. I want to make sure that it's on there and sticking, but I don't want to change the shape of it because, you know, I want it to look like the rim of the cauldron, but it should be okay like this. I rolled out a thicker cane of clay, narrowing one end to a soft point. This is going to be her arms. Right, so I'll cut this in half lengthwise, just like this. Here we go. I'm going to push her arms into place, and I'm going to bend her hands over the cauldron, just like this. There we go. I'm making a wee indent at the wrist, you know, to delineate her hand from her arm. You feel me? We'll get her other arm in place. And I roll over the seams just like I did before to mesh the clays together. You know what I mean? So to make her nose, what I did is cut the end from a thin snake of clay so that we have a cone shape. So just that little soft point, I'm going to cut it off so it looks kind of like a chocolate chip. I want her to have that classic witch pointy nose. I'm using a small piece of toothpick to anchor her nose, so I'm going to push that right in here on her face where I want her nose to go, obviously. I'm only leaving a wee bit sticking out, and now I'm going to slide her nose right over top of that. Kind of has a snowman vibe. And you know the deal. We're going to roll over the seams just like we did before. I roll a small ball of clay, and we're going to cut that in half to make her cheeks. And we're going to place them on either side of her nose. And once again, we're going to roll over the seams. Again, I do this every time I'm adding in a fresh piece of clay. She needs some sweet wee dimples, so I'm going to push up into her cheek from underneath, creating a little dimply divot. And we have another wee tiny ball here for her chin. So just press that on and incorporate it. For her hair, I'm rolling cones of clay, and I'm going to cut them to size, and they're going to go completely around her head. She's going to have a cute wee bob haircut going on. So that's all I'm going to do. I'm just going to frame out her face first, and then I'll fill in the gaps around her head. I always start in the front of the face just because, it's easier to gauge where you're going to need the hair. You feel me? You feel me. And I think you can see I don't really go all the way up to the top. I kind of leave a little bit of a bald spot there because that's where her hat's going to go. Okay. Yep, that looks pretty good. Let's make her hat. Flattening more clay, and I'm going to cut a circle using a jar lid for the brim of her hat. I'll create the point by rolling some clay into a thick cone. So I'm just starting out here with a ball of clay and focusing pressure on that one end. There's a lot of excess at the bottom here, so I'm just going to use my circle cutter and cut off that extra clay, and then struggle to get the point out of the cutter. I push another toothpick into the center of her head to anchor her hat. I'm going to be adding the brim here, and I have no idea why I did it this way. I should have added the brim and then the toothpick, but there you go. As many times as I've done this, never did it this way. And now we're going to pop the cone on right on top of that toothpick. And we're incorporating. Okay, so I'm going to do that all the way around the cone just to make sure the two pieces are well stuck. Okay, so I roll a bunch of clay balls to make her bubbles, and I'm just going to pop them on somewhat randomly, and they're all different sizes. I kind of want them coming down into a point, almost looks like grapes. And I'm going to add some around the back too. I also cut 2 small balls in half to add as feet to the cauldron. So I'm just going to pop those on, 2 in the front and 2 feet in the back. And once they're on there, we'll let her dry overnight. Whispa is well dry. She's ready to go. Let's get painting. I'm going to start with their face and hands, and they're going to get 2 coats of Americana Pistachio Mint. And for the sake of the length of the video, we're going to move through this pretty quickly, okay? Would it even be a Halloween project if I didn't give her hat 2 coats of Hippo Grey? I don't think so. I'm going to give her dress 2 coats of Americana Spiced Pumpkin. Her hair and the cauldron will get 2 coats of Ceramcoat Charcoal, my other favorite. Is everyone ready for Halloween? I'm going to decorate this weekend. This is really late for me. I'm usually decorated by the 1st of October, but it's been crazy busy. And her bubbles are going to get 2 coats of Ceramcoat GP Purple. Don't forget the ones on the back. Let's give her some eyes. So I'm just going to paint in the outline with white and then I'll fill it in real quick. I'm trying to give you a good view here and be able to see at the same time. Okay, just filling those in. There we go. She's going to be a green-eyed beauty here. So I dot in her iris with Americana Irish Moss. Let's outline her eyes with the Irish Moss as well. And you know what? Let's do her mouth too. Once I get her mouth on there, I'm going to give her a couple wrinkles on the top lip and 1 or 2 on the bottom. Just little stroke marks, make her lips look puckered. Now I'll fill in her mouth with some of that charcoal. We'll dot her pupils with the charcoal as well. And she needs some eyebrows, and of course, some lashes. There we go, a couple wee wispy ones at the top of her eye, and then some longer ones on the side. And white dot highlights for her eyes. There we go. We'll do some dry brushing. I dry brush her cheeks with Irish Moss, and I'm going to do a little on her nose and a little on her chin as well. And she's going to get 1 single tooth on the bottom here so she can eat her cheese and pickle sandwich. I stripe her sleeves with Hippo Grey and white. Now let's dry brush the bubbles with some Ceramcoat Sweet Pea. It's like a really pale lilac. Now I'm coming in and hitting her hair with lines of Ceramcoat Passion Purple. I want to pull a wee bit more of that purple into the overall piece. You feel me? I'll accent her hat by dry brushing it with charcoal. And her cauldron will get a dry brush of Hippo Grey. Out comes the floating medium. Let's shade our girl Whispa. I'll prep my brush by getting a really healthy coat of the medium, this clear gel here. Get it right on there. Okay, now I'm going to side load by scooping up the paint, Irish Moss, onto the corner of my brush. I'll stroke my brush on the plate to load the bristles and blend the medium with the paint. This is going to give me a gradient of color from dark to light, fading as it moves toward the middle of the bristles. I place the paint corner of my brush where I want my darkest shadow, and I lay down my shading. I'm going to go all around her face and features and her hands. And, you know, I just reload my brush with either the paint, the medium, or both whenever I feel it's necessary. You just trust the process. You get the hang of it. It doesn't really take long. Yeah, we're going to shade around her features a wee bit too. Get in there under her eyes and around her nose and whatnot. And right here at the wrists. Yeah, that looks good. Now I'm looking at her and I'm thinking she's missing something. Her hat needs a hat band, so I'm going to do that with Spiced Pumpkin. Now back to the floating. I'm going to float her orange dress with burnt orange, right in kind of the creases, anywhere there would be a natural shadow. I added charcoal and white dots to her headband, jazz it up a wee bit. And we'll add white dot highlights to her chin and cheeks too, while we're at it. Let's add some white dots to the bubbles too. Why not? I float the bubbles with purple passion or passion purple. And this is just really random. I'm not worried if the shading is exact. This is more like a stain really, I guess. Now I'm going to float some shading black around her hat band and around the brim of her hat, and I'm also going to do black on the cauldron. You know, and you've heard me say, for the most part, I do all the shading and highlighting by eye. I don't really stick to any rules. Not really. So, like I said, trust the process. Okay, let's finish up with her cauldron here. And once that's done, all the painting is done, and we're going to add a top coat of Mod Podge to seal her. And I'm just going to pounce this on. I'm using a cosmetic sponge. And her final embellishments, I'm going to use some Fabrifix glue here and a dot of hot glue. I'm going to wrap this metallic pipe cleaner around her neck to finish it off. I'll also give her some cuffs with the pipe cleaner. And I made a wee buckle for her hat. So we're just gonna pop that on. And wee whimsical Whispa is all ready for All Hallows Eve. Here's a final look. I'm pretty happy with the way she turned out. You gotta let me know what you think. I think she's really fun. Also, next week, I'm going to show you a wooden version of her, well, MDF version of her, that I did for a friend, for her windows. I went into a little more detail about how to float in shading and highlighting and whatnot, so be sure to check back for that. In the meantime, I want to thank my co-hosts, Dawn, Martina, and Morena. Please check out their channels. You'll find links in the description box, along with a link to the playlist. You know, we always have some great inspiration, great creators join us. We're really lucky, so check those out. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and all that good stuff. Stay creative, my friends. Thanks for hanging with me. See you next time. Up all night with Monica.